Oh my God, it's a giant. Bro, there's just no way that just happened right now. What's going on, guys? It's Cutcarrycast Podcast, episode 13. We have Mr. Fisherman Wilson back on the podcast today, and we're going to talk some salmon fishing on the American. Austin's been out there quite a bit doing his guiding on the weekends, so if you guys are interested in that, we'll get a good report and kind of see how the rest of the season's shaping out. How's it going, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I've been seeing those pictures on your Instagram, man. What's going on out there?
Oh, man, it's been good. You know, we had a rain probably, about 2 weeks ago that pulled a bunch of fish in, you know, salmon and steelhead. Not really a whole lot of guys fishing for steelhead. There's some absolute giant stripers in the river still. Saw a few that were probably pushing that 40-pound class range. But haven't been targeting any of those, so I've been so focused on my salmon. And a lot of guys are. So, but yeah, no, it's been good. We just had some rain. Obviously, it's raining today. And I heard the fishing was lights out today, like unbelievably good. So, wish I was out there, but I had to work. I had to go to my real job.
Such is life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think real quick. So obviously everyone's out there catching salmon right now. People are grabbing steelhead here or there. And you're talking about those giant stripers. Do you think that those are just resident fish that you've been seeing lately, or are those some big ones that are moving into the system, following the salmon, or what do you think about that?
That's a great question. And, you know, I think they could be resident fish, but we've also had a lot smaller salmon, like a lot smaller grade of fish showing up, a lot like that, you know, 5 to 7 pound class range. And I'm sure there's even smaller ones, you know, 3-4 pounders. I haven't caught any, but I'm sure they're there. And I mean, a 40-pound striper, I can see eating a 3-pound salmon, you know, so I'm sure that's why they're coming up the river. And on top of that, there's steelhead. You got your Central Valley fish that are pushing up, and then I'm sure there's some Eel River strain steelhead pushing up as well. Seeing actually a handful of guys catching some of those Central Valley fish lately, the last few trips, and some fly guys, and I'm sure that's what those stripers are targeting, because there's really not much bait fish in the river. Like, I've seen a few pike minnow swimming around, but not much, and there's a huge crawdad population as well in the river, so that I'm sure that's their main diet. But you know, the steelhead is probably big protein, you know, bar swimming around. It'd probably be nice to get one of them, you know. But I think crawdads are what they're focused on, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I feel like, you know, any time of year where stuff's changing, there's always a fish or a species or a pattern that everyone's kind of locked into. And I feel like some of those other fish can sometimes kind of get forgotten during those periods of time. And like you said, I mean, there's some legit, you know, state class or, you know, giant fish still swimming around striper wise and everything. So might be worth checking out if you guys are interested in that.
Yeah. And I don't know how long they're going to be around, if they are going to be resident fish. And, but, you know, the only one way to find out is go out there and fish for them, you know, in November and December.
Yeah, I'm curious, you know, obviously you've been out there a lot. I'm sure you're starting to get to know other guides on the river and, you know, we've been paying a lot of attention to the fish that are just being caught in general. What have you seen in your opinion as far as like salmon population size, you know, the number of fish? Is there any fish that you've seen, whether, you know, when your clients caught it or maybe out of another boat that was kind of like a, you know, standout fish this season size-wise?
You know, not on the American. On the Feather, there was early in the year, there was a lot. It seemed like every fish was over 20 pounds. 20, 25 was the average. And then kind of midway through the season, a lot of smaller fish started showing up that I would say 6 to 9 pound class, you know, which are super fun to catch. And then, you know, later in the season, like we are now, some, you know, bigger fish started showing up. But, you know, the biggest fish that I heard of this year that, you know, a buddy of mine caught, he put it on a scale, was 37 pounds, which is a giant one. I've seen some other guys say they caught a 40 pounder, but personally, like looking at that fish, they don't look 40. You know, when they get that big, they just look different. You know, they're just built different. And looking at those fish, I wasn't there, obviously, but, you know, they said it's 40, and I'm like, my personal opinion, when I've been around a lot of salmon, that's probably not 40. But I can't be the guy to really judge. I wasn't there, right? But and then my personal best this year for what a client got was 35 on the scale. So, which is a big fish. My personal best is only like overall, my personal best is 42. I had actually two 42 pounders that I caught on the American a long time ago. But for the American recently, there's been a lot smaller fish. Now, I did talk to a buddy today, and he said he saw a lot of big fish, like 30-pound class fish shooting up riffles. I mean, the river's really low right now. The river's at like 900 CFS, which is extremely low. And so a lot of these riffles they're shallow. And every time school of fish shoots up, you can see them. Their backs are out of the water. And he said he saw a couple really, really big ones. I mean, I believe him. He's a guide. Him and I have known each other for a long time. He's on the water a lot. He knows what those fish look like. And which is good to see because like I said, we've had a lot smaller fish, on the American this year, which no one likes to catch small fish. Let's be honest. We're out there to catch the biggest fish we can. But that's 5 to 9 pounders. They fight good. They pull line. But we all want to hook that 30 plus, 25 plus pounder. But now it's time. A lot of bigger fish are showing up, and I think by this weekend with my next trips, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. So talking about, I know you kind of mentioned about different types of salmon, or like this for the American, this for the feather, or whatnot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like all the salmon from the Pacific Ocean that are coming through San Francisco and whatnot, those are technically the same fish that are going into the feather or the American. They're just kind of like choosing a fork in the road, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of fish that when coming underneath the Golden Gate, they're going to a bunch of different rivers. We're only allowed to keep them in 3 this year: the feather, the American, and the McCallum. There's a bunch of other rivers that get fish, but we can't fish for them. Like the Sacramento, I heard they had really good numbers. Can't fish for them on the Sac. San Joaquin, is another, decent number of fish, but once again, can't fish for them. I mean, there's a bunch of like tributaries, like the Yuba, for instance. You can't fish the Yuba that has, some fish showing up too. And little creeks too. Like there's little creeks in not too far from me, Roseville. It's a little dry creek, not Little Dry Creek. That's actually a duck refuge, but Dry Creek is the creek near me, and there's salmon starting to show up here too. So, I mean, they're everywhere. We just can't fish for them in certain places. But I've been on the feather and the American pretty much since it's been open.
So those Roseville fish that you're talking about, I'm glad you actually brought that up because for you guys, those the people listening or whatnot, sometimes you're like on a hiking trail or you're going over a bridge, you'll see the little sign that says like, oh, this is salmon habitat. And I know for me, I was always like, oh, well, there's no fish in that little creek, but you've actually seen some like legitimate salmon in some of those smaller little fingers.
Yeah. Yes, I have. Not a lot of them, but you see a few. If you go down there right now, you might have a hard time seeing them, but if you go in late November, I think you'll definitely see them. You might have to do a little bit of looking. There's not a lot of them, but this year it could be a different year. We've had a lot of fish showing up, and there might be just a pile of fish in all these little creeks, spread out through our Central Valley. From I would say Puta Creek up there in Berryessa to obviously the one right here in Roseville, the little Dry Creek, Coon Creek that's up in Lincoln. There's a pile of little creeks that have, get some flow, especially with this rain. Fish are going to show up, and you'll see them. And these giant salmon are in these little creeks. It's kind of cool to see,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a trip. I know there's no salmon in this creek, but we have a little Willow Creek in Folsom here, and I've always caught a ton of bass and sunfish in there and whatnot. And I always saw these signs that said like, wild trout stream or whatever, like it's protected. And I remember we fished out there for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years when I was a kid. And then one day we randomly caught a big rainbow in this like warm water creek. And it was kind of out of nowhere. And I always saw those signs that said, it's trout habitat or whatnot, but never actually caught one. So it's funny sometimes when some of these little creeks actually get some real fish in them.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the dam, because Willow Creek dumps into Natoma, right? I'm sure if we didn't have the dams there, we would have salmon showing up in that creek too, if we didn't have Nimbus Dam. But that's cool. Yeah, that's cool that those fish go up. I've always wondered, where those fish actually spawn at Lake Natoma, because everything's pretty deep, and there's not really a whole lot of moving water. Certain times of the year, depends on how full Folsom is and how much they're releasing, but it's all fluctuating. It's not consistent current, which I think those, when they make reds and drop their eggs, I think they need consistent current to create oxygen for those eggs. If they dump them out in the lake, I don't know how well those eggs would survive. I don't know how those. I think they need moving water. Not 100% about that, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, just kind of to build off that, I was on Facebook, I think like last week, and I saw a random post for some guy up in the Yuba area, like above Bullard's Bar, and he actually had like a video of like legitimate like king salmon, like the landlocked ones. I guess they planted fingerlings in Bullard's a couple years ago, and he had a video of like fish swimming around up in the river up there, and he's like, "Oh, they're from Bullard's Bar," and I was like, I never even put that together in my head that the kings in Folsom or the kings in Bullard's would actually go up into the river and spawn.
So I could be wrong about this, but they are actually not. So they're actually doing a study. Fish and Game is actually taking spring run salmon and dropping them off above Orville, or sorry, above Bullards, and letting those spring salmon spawn in their natural habitat as far there, because that's where they should spawn. These spring run salmon they enter the river in like March, April, May, June. They're all they're coming up, and those fish pretty much hit all these dams, and these fish aren't supposed to spawn this far down in the rivers. They're actually supposed to spawn out up in the mountains, up in the foothills in the Sierras, and obviously we've stopped them from doing that with all the dams that we put in. So what Fish and Game has recently done is actually grab those fish and trucked them up there. Now I don't know how they're going to get those spring run the smolts down. I'm sure they have some kind of contraption, like traps to catch them. They also did it on Orville, is what I understand. They took those fish, brought them above Orville, and those fish can spawn up there. So I know James Stone, he talks about it in one of his videos. If you listen to him, he fights for all our salmon, fights for our fisheries, and he explains it very well. He's a very good listen. If you haven't heard of him, check out NorCal Guides with Sportsmen Association on Facebook. He also has a YouTube channel as well. So check him out. It's a pretty cool listen.
Yeah, that's kind of a trip. Not to be a hater, but it's surprising that Fish and Game's even doing something like that in the state of California. Mm-hmm. So that's cool that they're actually giving it a shot to see what the fish do. Yeah.
That's where they're supposed to spawn. Because by the time they're actually supposed to spawn in like October, early October, the water's usually too warm, and so they don't really have a good spawn. And then on top of that, you have a bunch of the fall run fish showing up too, which then they spawn right on top of the spring run fish. So which is, can it be good? I don't know. You think of Alaska and all these thousands of fish are spawning with each other. I don't know what would be different about these fish spawning on top. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of weird. I guess those spring run fish, I guess their eggs would already be like mature, and I wouldn't say starting to hatch, but they would be probably halfway through their process when these fall run fish come in and start spawning on top of the spring run fish, reds. That makes sense? That makes sense at all?
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. On a kind of to build off that, it's super weird to me to like to what you just said, to imagine like if we didn't have these dams, like how far those fish would actually go. Like that's such a trippy thing to think about, like seeing salmon like up off of 50 or something in the South Fork of the American or something like that. It's just, that's so weird to imagine like fish that high up, because we're just not used to it anymore.
Right. Yeah, those fish would go that far. 100%. They go as far as they possibly can. Those spring run fish are, they pretty much enter the river when we have a lot of snow melt, and a lot of these tributaries and creeks are super high, and they try to, we're supposed to, they're meant to go as far as possible, and then they hold over during the summer months in those deep, clear, cold pools up in the Sierras, and they pretty much wait, there until the fall and when they're ready to spawn. So, but yeah, I drove up 50 earlier this year, and I really thought about that. I was like, man, it'd be cool to see salmon up here, and doing their thing. I mean, obviously wouldn't be able to fish for them, but it would definitely be cool to see them up that high.
Yeah, I literally can't even imagine it, but that'd be a trip. I know every year when the kokanee spawn up in the high elevation lakes, that's always kind of a trip too, because I feel like it's kind of a taste of what it maybe would be like going into all those rivers.
Yeah. I actually heard the holdover landlocked at the Kings on Folsom Lake, they actually travel up the river and try to spawn. I heard they can't, but I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, the kokanee spawn. Why couldn't the landlocked Kings go up there and do their thing?
Yeah, it seems like Folsom has a pretty healthy population of kings, so I'd be curious to see. I know we do plant like fingerlings in the lake, but I mean, like to your point, I don't know why, especially if they're going to try and do it and whatnot, why they wouldn't be able to. And I feel like, I don't know, what was like, maybe like, I don't know if you remember, but I feel like it was like 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there was like a crazy run where all those dudes on Folsom, I feel like were catching like 12, 13, 14 pound like king salmon, like giant ones all the time. There was like a little flurry of it for like 1 year where they were catching big ones.
I remember that. And then the next year our river season closed. And I was like, man, I hope that we have some of those fish holding over, because I was like, I really wanted to go up in the South Fork or the North Fork and see if they were there and maybe try to target them with like roe with a float, or maybe throwing spinner, like a bigger spinner, because there are browns and rainbows up there. But I thought maybe presenting a little bit bigger profile to see if I could actually pull one out of one of those deep holes up there in the fall, around this time. I actually read there's an article somewhere on on the internet that there was a bunch of researchers that went up there in scuba gear and dove every like hole from, I would say, Coloma down, and they actually were counting king salmon in a lot of those holes going down, which I thought was super neat. I'll have to send you that link. I don't know. It's been a couple years since I've seen it, but yeah, there was a link on the internet that has some research about it, so which is super cool.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a lot of stuff kind of happening, I don't want to say behind closed doors, but low key that a lot of people just don't even know about, that I think a lot of people would probably find it some enjoyment to know that there are people kind of looking into things like that and kind of seeing what our fisheries are doing that we don't know about.
Right.
So in your opinion, I'm kind of curious. I know it sounds to me, at least, like you spent a lot of time on the American, a little bit on the Feather. And I know we just mentioned kind of some other creeks, or not creeks, but river systems like the McCollum and the San Joaquin and whatnot, Sacramento. How have you kind of seen like fish, like amount of fish and size of fish? Like, do you feel like there's kind of similar size ones in each of those rivers, or is one kind of more different than the other one as far as that goes?
Yeah. So over the years, I've noticed the Feather gets a lot bigger fish. I haven't really spent a whole lot of time on the Sac, so I can't really say. It's so hard to go that way, go fish up in Chico and stuff like that, because I do have the Americans right here in my backyard. The Feathers, going that, if I was going to go that way up to it's on my way to the Sac, up to Chico or whatnot. So it's hard for me to go there when I have the American and the Feather in between me. So, but yeah, I think the Feather has bigger fish. Not saying that the American doesn't. They definitely have big fish as well. Like I said earlier, my two personal best fish have come out of the American, which are 42 pounds. But I remember when I was a real young kid, my dad took me up there to Thermalito Afterbay, and I don't know how old it was, 9, 10, 11, and this guy caught a 50-pounder, and he was holding it up, and this thing was bigger than I was. It was massive. But which was crazy. And there's actually a couple other rivers you're allowed to fish. I totally forgot that to mention. The Eel River is another one that's up the coast, Eureka area, that is a catch and release only. You can fish it, but you cannot keep them. Another one is the Smith River. You can keep one fish. I think you can only keep 5 fish a year, but yeah, 1 fish per day, which is a super cool fishery. You've never gone up there and done it. It's awesome. It's probably my favorite river to fish for salmon in California. Those fish are just built different. They get big. I think the record for that river is 86 pounds, I believe. I could be wrong. So I think it's 86 pounds. Our state record is 88 pounds, which came out of the Sacramento. But I think that fish might have been lost. To be totally honest, who knows? That might have been a fish from Alaska. But I know the Smith River, there's 50 and 60 pounders get caught there every year. So and that's a total, I wouldn't say total wild river. There's no dams. What I understand, there's been no dams built on that river. At one point, it was the only undammed river in California. Now, obviously, the Klamath, you've seen all the dams getting taken down on the Klamath. Now, there are a few more dams on the Klamath, but way upriver. I think up in possibly Oregon, up there in by Klamath Lake. But the Smith is a special fishery. But yeah, it's only fishes really only a few weeks out of the year, because you can't fish that river until it hits like 600 CFS, which is, when it gets rain. It's a creek. Other than that, it's like 100 CFS, 200 CFS, and then when it gets rain, it's a canyon. So all this rain dumps into this canyon, and then the river comes up. Last year when I was there, it got up to 24,000 CFS, so which is crazy how much rain, and because there's no dams holding it back. All those creeks get very swollen with rain, and but it drops out pretty quick too. So 24,000 one day, the very next day it dropped out to 9,000. So it can fluctuate pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm glad you threw out some of those numbers. That was kind of my next question, size-wise. It's interesting. I feel like I saw this video on Instagram that was floating around. It was like a salmon from, I don't know if this is even right, but I could have sworn it was from like Patagonia or something, or like Chile, like this giant salmon, like, whatever you said, close to like 100-pound class or something. And I don't know if you know what like the biggest salmon there are that have been caught, but it's so trippy to think, like you said earlier, there's a lot of 5 to 9 pound salmon in the American right now. And then all of a sudden we're throwing out 80s and almost 90s for the state. And it's like, it's just so weird to think a fish can grow that big. That isn't that big off the rip. Like they start out as a tiny little smelt, and then somehow that thing's almost 90 pounds.
Right. In 4 to 5 years. Right. So that's their life cycle, unless they stay out for 6 years. But a lot of times, I don't think that happens, but a lot of time these fish's life cycle is 2 to 4 years, and then obviously they go stay to 5 or 6 years. But that's when they get really big. But we've had a lot of, I would say, 2-year-old fish showing up this year, which kind of makes sense. You think about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. What were we in? We were in a severe drought. We had like no water. The water's really warm. A lot of fish were dying, and so I think the jacks were able to survive, to spawn, and that's that quality of fish kind of are making it back the last couple of years. Those big 3 to 4 year old fish didn't really make it because that water was too warm. So, but I think next year is going to be good. I think the following year is going to be good. The last like 3 years we've had a lot of water. And what do fish like? They like water. Imagine that, right? So when we have water, we have good spawning population. Obviously, the American right now is not the greatest with the water flows of 900 CFS. Now, there hasn't been any salmon spawning quite yet that I know of. Usually they spawn like the end of October, November, December, January is when those fish spawn. And what I understand what Folsom's doing, because Folsom, you're a bass fisherman. I'm a bass fisherman. I don't believe it's at 5 mile an hour yet. I still think you can still run around on that lake, right?
Yeah, it's still open.
Yeah. So they can still let some water out, but it was some of the little, I guess, stuff that I've heard and read a little bit is they don't have a lot of, I would say, cool pool. So when they do start spawning the fish, that's what they're holding back. So, they don't have much of it. So when they do start to spawn these fish, they can start pulling that cold water to make these, have these fish survive. So that's kind of why they're holding back the water. And that's why that water's so low right now. But I did hear soon they're going to start releasing more water, which is great because, fish like water, and I think the river is extremely, extremely, extremely low. especially since we've had water. We've not been in a drought the last couple of years. So it's mind blowing to me that even the water is at 900 CFS. They let too much water out in the springtime. But and again, I'm not in control of that. So
hey, we want Austin Wilson for Bureau of Reclamation Water president. So we're gonna have a survey after this podcast. If you guys are interested, link will be in the description.
Oh man, that sounds like above my pay grade.
Hey, you're a little mad scientist. Okay, don't discredit yourself too much. Yeah, I just looked it up on my phone. It looks like world record salmon is 97 pounds, 4 ounces. And then catch and release record, I guess maybe that's less official, 105. And then largest salmon ever recorded was caught in a commercial fish trap in 1949 and was 126 pounds, which is insane.
Yeah. Insane.
All right, so no one cares about these salmon in the history. What the people want to know about is what's happening on the American. What have you been up to? That's what we want.
So I've been guiding every weekend from pretty much since the feather closed on September 15th. I've been on the American every weekend. I do have a full-time job, so I'm not able to go during the week. But as of right now, I'm just on the weekends. So every weekend I've been on the American. Now September, the middle to end of September was pretty tough. We were getting some fish, but it was more of a morning deal. You only had a couple hours in the morning. After that, it was dead. These fish kind of stop pushing. So that's when you're catching fish. When fish are shooting up the river to get up to the next cold, deep hole in the morning or low light, that's when you're going to get your bites. When that sun kind of hit the water, those fish kind of hunkered down, got some of these deep holes and just laid low. But we had some rain about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, and the fishing was really good. A lot of fish moved up, and the fishing, like I said, was lights out. It was very good. And then last weekend, we kind of had some bites. It wasn't great. Sunday I think we had 8 bites, but we only caught 1 fish. I am fishing in the barbless section, so you put any slack in the line, the fish are gone. Which 8 bites is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And I think with this rain, my buddy went out today. He said he's seen a lot of fish, like hundreds of fish shooting up these riffles because the water is so low. And I wish I was going out tomorrow, but unfortunately I got to go to work. But this weekend, I think it could be good. Now, it doesn't take those fish very long to get to the very top, up top. I've caught fish this far up with sea lice, and when they have sea lice on them, that's anywhere from 24 to 48 hours since they've left the salt, which is pretty crazy. That's a little over 100 miles from the salt.
In a day or 2 days.
A day and a half, which is insane. 2 days, yeah. Now a lot of these fish are kind of holding up because we've had low water, so now they're starting to get some color to them. But with this rain, a lot of these fish are going to feel it, and even the fish that are out in the ocean, they're going to push. We're going to have a lot of fish showing up. So this is the time. We have the upper section closes on October 15th, which is tomorrow. Is tomorrow the 15th or the
Thursday?
Thursday's the 15th. So yeah, it's going to close then. But then you have the lower section, from Ansel Hoffman down, or I would say Riverbend or Gaiety Park down. That will stay open until October 31st. To the Jaboom Street Bridge, which that bridge is right at Discovery Park. So you still have a little bit of, little section of river you can still fish. And then McCallum, you can fish in McCallum. The feather's pretty much done. There are a few fish still being caught. I had a buddy out this week. He said he hooked quite a few. What day was it? I think it was Sunday. I think he hooked 21 fish on Sunday. So there's still a lot of fish still coming up, but it's about to be done. I think another week or so it could be over with. So, but the McCallum started to push out some fish. So if you can't fish the American and you have a bass boat that you're listening to this, you can go over to the McCallum and go, jig some of those deep holes or throw spinners, and you can do pretty well. Because the American is almost too shallow. It is too shallow for a lot of boats. You have to have a drift boat or a raft because you will drag over a lot of these riffles. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there the next couple weeks. So I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. So, I'm not really like big into this, so maybe just clarify a little bit. So the upper section is going to close, but then you can still continue to fish in the lower section for, a little bit longer or whatnot is what I'm kind of gathering.
Mhm. Yes, correct.
And then
You used
that
to be
goes
able
forever, or
you,
that just goes until the fish are gone, more or less.
that goes until January 1st.
January 1st.
So
Gotcha.
it's usually October 31st to January 1st is when you cannot fish the upper section, the barbless section. This year with the different rules and the one fish per person per day, one in possession, they kind of cut it back. They cut the season way short. Um, they obviously our season closes October 1st. October 31st. We used to fish for them until I want to say December 16th. But that's still the upper section closed on the American from October 31st. That's when you cannot fish the upper section. So they cut us back a couple weeks, and actually a couple months through the season because we used to be able to fish for them until December. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm glad we had a season. I was able to get out. We caught a lot of fish this year. It was good that the season was closed for a couple of years. Now, to be honest, I kind of wish it was closed this year, just because I don't like how I guess the state was able, like, oh, you're okay with what was happening, like you're okay with you're only allowed to keep one fish. Well, maybe we'll just keep it that way. Or maybe we'll just keep it a short season. Because I feel like the state doesn't want any of us fishing. They don't want any of us hunting. So if those fish can swim around freely without us fishing for them, that's what the state wants. They hate us outdoorsmen, I feel like. So I wasn't okay. That's what I'm not okay with. Like, I didn't really want a season if we are going to have a short season because I didn't want them to do this to us in the future. Like next year, what are they going to do next year? I don't know. Are they going to keep the same season? Are we going to, they're going to bump it up to 2 per person? We're going to have a full, season from July 16th all the way to December? I don't know. So that's my 2 cents about the whole season. I'm glad we're able to fish for them. I want to fish for them just as bad as everyone else, but at the end of the day, like the state only allows us to have a short season, and we're okay with that because we're able to go out and go fishing. Next year, what's them saying like, oh, you guys are okay with this, we're just gonna have it again next year. So which kind of sucks, to be totally honest. But obviously we both don't know what's going to happen with the fishery in the state and whatnot. So
yeah, it's very, very rare that you give up something and get it all back.
Yep.
No matter what aspect of life it is. But hey, we're ripping kind of a shorty today. We just want to get you guys some information on the salmon situation, and hopefully you guys can get out and catch some fish soon. Appreciate you coming on, Austin. I want to plug some of your stuff just in case anyone wants to book a trip while we still have some time.
Yeah, definitely. My phone number if you want to book a trip. I am booked out for salmon season, so I'm not able, unless I get a cancellation, which, it's very possible. Or it is possible. I won't say very possible, but it is possible I get a cancellation. I only had a couple this year. But steelhead season is right around the corner. January, February is the main time. I will book trips in November and December, but those fish are pretty much unicorns. They're hard to catch, and I just let people know, like, hey, we're only searching for a couple bites or maybe even one bite today. These fish are very hard to catch in the lower river, at least the big Eel River strain. Now, the Central Valley fish, yeah, you'll come across a couple, but the big Eel River fish, they're hard to catch in that lower river. You got to, wait until January when that river opens up to fish for them up top, which is mind-blowing to me because they got to shoot that through that lower river to get to the upper part, so, but it bothers me that I can't figure them out. I can't catch those big ones. Now I have caught some big ones down below, but they're really hard to catch. But yeah, so November, December, I am booking some trips. If you guys are interested, you guys want to fish hard down there, I will fish sun up to sundown. But if you want to chase them when they're here, January, February, the beginning of March is your time that you want to go. So yeah, if you want to reach out, the phone number is 916-410-4990. You can also reach out to me on my social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Fisherman Wilson is my or Austin Wilson Fishing. Fisherman Wilson is my YouTube channel, which I haven't posted in a while. I think August, or it wasn't even August. It was like September because it took me forever to post that frog video. I've been so busy, but hopefully I'll have another video, during salmon season. I do plan on doing a trip here soon. You know, just me and a couple friends. So I do plan on filming then. So will I have a video? Not sure. Just because I've been so busy, kind of when I get a day to myself, I just want to go fishing and not have to worry about anything else. I don't have to worry about all the camera equipment. And it's like another job on top of everything else. So, but I do enjoy editing. But anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. But
well, we appreciate it. Well, I'll go ahead and link all his information. Keep a good close eye on his Instagram story if you guys want to see some fish catches and any of those cancellation stuffs. And we always appreciate you coming on, man, and look forward to seeing what you got going on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye. All right, we just wrapped up kind of a quicker episode with Austin. I'm super glad to get him on the podcast. It's crazy. I feel he tries to kind of like downplay it, but that guy knows so much about fish. I don't even care what kind of fish it is: bass, striped bass, salmon, steelhead. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I think it'd be nice to see guys like him and guys like I keep blanking on the dude's name, but the dude he referenced from the NorCal Guide Association or whatnot. People like that have so much information, and even with how much stuff still is on the internet floating around and stuff you can read and whatnot, a lot of, I don't want to say like true secrets, but just a lot of the real information is coming from these fishermen. And, obviously we have biologists that are going out and studying things and, going through their scientific processes and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of us fishermen are seeing some things that, these biologists are not going to see because they're not out as much as we are. They don't just go fish multiple times a week. They got to do their paperwork. They got to do their stuff back at the lab or whatnot, and then come out into the field on a special occasion to collect some samples, document some stuff and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, always awesome to have Austin on, and hopefully we can keep him coming on and just snatch a couple nuggets every time. That's kind of what it's about when you talk to these guys. Is you just got to let them go, and then just pick up everything as you can. And we're just super lucky to have him on the show. So appreciate you, Austin, and make sure you guys reach out to him for a guide trip.